Hello again, YouTubers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm your host, the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and showing you how to play The Duke. Now, The Duke is an abstract strategy game, though with a twist, and it is meant to represent that you and your opponent are playing rival dukes battling over territory. Now, the game was designed by Jeremy Halcombe and Stephen McLaughlin, and was published by Catalyst Game Labs, right there. So, The Duke is a two-player game. It is for ages 13 and up, and is a 15 to 25-minute game. So not much to say about the two players. It doesn't play more or less. It's a strictly two-player game. The ages 13 and up, now, that can be a bit of an overestimate. If you play with a child that's under 13 but routinely gets strategy of abstract strategy games, for instance, someone who's fairly good at games like chess, they're probably going to be fine with this no matter what their age is. Now, as for the 15 to 25 minutes, that's a pretty good estimate. This game can play fairly quickly. It can be over in those 15 minutes. Or if both people are playing a bit defensively, it can go up to almost half an hour. So the 15 to 25 is fairly accurate. So let's open up the box and I'll show you what you get. Now, the first bit of components I need to show you, and these are actually really important for the game, are the bags. The thing is, you start with only 3 pieces on the board, and when you want to draw new pieces, you draw them randomly from the bags, and they get placed adjacent to your Duke tile. All the pieces are tiles. So these bags are filled with the tiles for either side. So let me show you what the tiles look like. So for instance, here we go. This is a bowman. Now, the tile has a diagram on it. The piece in the middle is the bowman, and those other circles, the solid and hollow circles, show where the bowman can move and or attack. In the case of the solid circles, that is a move one space and capture anything in it. In the case of the hollow circles, that allows you to jump over a piece and then capture what is in it. Now, once you do one of those movements, and whether or not you capture a piece, the bowman flips over. And on the other side, it completely changes what the bowman can do. Now, those stars there are a different special ability. That's called a strike. And those are really cool because what they allow you to do is they allow you to capture a piece in those spaces without actually moving the bowman. Though then once you do that, again, you flip the bowman back over. Now, this is a really cool mechanic, and this is one of the most interesting things about the Duke, is the fact that the pieces change how they move. Now, the most basic piece in the set is generally considered the footman, who starts off being able to move one space in every direction. But even the footman, once he moves that one space, suddenly has a much more interesting movement pattern. But if he moves again, he goes back to that one space in every direction. Now, the other side has a darker brown for their tiles so that they are not to be confused. So let me show you here are the footmen from the 2 different sides. One is kind of ivory while the other is a bit mocha. Now, the next bit of components I want to show you. Let me pull some components out of the box here. Okay, first of all, I want to show you the rule book. It is a very nice full-color rule book filled with illustrations and diagrams. The rule book is clear. It thoroughly explains all the special abilities. It gives you ideas. It actually tells you some alternate ways to play, which involves some interesting alternate pieces that come with this game. The game comes with some alternate scenarios, so you can play things other than just the straight up fight each other scenario. You're able to play a scenario that involves a dragon and a mountain, and you see these are some of the special pieces here for those alternate scenarios. Now, I love that this game comes with different ways to play it. Even if you never use any of the optional alternate ways to play it, just having the option available is great. I love when companies give you extra ways to utilize their game. It's really a very generous and wonderful thing that they do. Now, here's the board. It's fairly standard cardboard board. It is a 6x6 grid, and the pieces move around on the grid as shown by the diagrams on the actual pieces. So not really much to say there. The next thing I want to show you is these lovely cheat sheets. These are fantastic. In the case here, this reminds you how to exactly make the moves for the different symbols, and this gives a full description of what each symbol means, along with a description of what each Roman numeral special ability means. These are very important, especially for your first handful of games, because you know what, you're going to forget. You're going to say, ooh, what does that hollow arrow do again? And you look on here and you say, oh, it's the jump slide. Right, I remember that from the rules. I remember how the jump slide works. Or if you don't, you can look over here and it'll remind you how the jump slide works. It saves you a lot of time. These are so wonderfully done that you will not have to look in the rule book at all for the quick referencing. You just go to these wonderful quick reference cheat sheets. These are great. So that's a look at just about everything that comes in the Duke. I just want to show you the dragon real quick because I love the dragon tile. It's black and gold. And again, now this is only for a special scenario, and the reason he's black and not either of the colors of the two sides is because in that scenario he's neutral and he actually attacks both players. Really, really cool thing. I also want to show you something they included, which is really neat. They included a blank tile and some stickers so you could design your own tile. One blank tile for either side. Real neat option, pretty cool. I haven't done it myself, but I like that they did that. That is a really cool, neat addition to the box. So that is a look at all of the components that you get in the Duke. So let's head over to the table. I'm going to show you how a game plays, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to tell you how it feels. I'm going to review it. I'm going to rate it, and we're going to get a second opinion from Lynn. All right, so here we can see a setup of the Duke. So the first thing you do when you're setting up the Duke is you decide who's going first via coin toss or maybe rock, paper, scissors, or however you want to do it. The player who goes first places their Duke tile on one of the two center locations on their side of the board. They then, after they choose a location, they place two footman pieces on two adjacent, orthogonally adjacent locations. Never diagonally, have to be adjacent. Now, you have to place your pieces on their starting side. And let me show you how you can recognize the starting side. As you see here, this is the starting side of the footman because the symbol for the footman in the middle looks like a pawn from chess, black against the background color of the piece. If you flip it over, there's an inverted version of that. That is not the starting side. You want that as the starting side. So once the mocha colored player has done that, then the ivory colored player can do the same, again, placing their Duke in one of the two center spaces and placing the footman adjacent to the Duke orthogonally, not diagonally. Now, as you can see, they have not set up in the same manner, and I did this on purpose to illustrate that. Your setup for the beginning of the game can be different from your opponent's. So now the person who set up first goes first, so in this case that will be the mocha colored player. And as I told you before, they can move to any of the locations illustrated on the piece, and then they flip their piece. So they're going to move their footman forward, and he flips. Now, then the other player can do the same. So they're going to move their footman forward here and then flip. Then the first player is going to move their other footman forward and flip. But now the second player doesn't want to move a piece. Instead, player 2 decides to add a piece to the board. So they pick up their bag. Here's their bag. They give it a good shake around. Make sure it's nice and randomized in there. Nice and random. And they're going to grab, let's see what they got. They got the Duchess. So there is the Duchess. Now the Duchess has some interesting movement and is also able to command other people to move around them, which is what some of these symbols mean. So the Duke is going to place the Duchess in front of himself like that. So now the other player decides that since the player 2 managed to get an extra piece and it was a fairly good one, they're going to try for 1 also. So they're going to mix up their bag nice, and they're going to draw the General. They also got a fairly good piece. So let's see, they're going to put the General also in front of their Duke. So now back to player 2. Now the Duchess has these interesting brackets on her. Those are her command brackets. You can see them around the pieces, the squares next to her symbol. They frame them in opposite corners there. Basically, the Duchess is allowed to take any piece in one of those spaces, move it to another space that also has brackets on it, and the Duchess flips, not the piece in question. So she's going to do that with this footman here. She's going to move him from one side of her to the other, and she is going to flip. So now that endangers, both these footmen are endangering each other. So player 1 decides, well, forget it then, I'm going to take out that footman. He has the ability, as you can see here, to move 2 spaces forward, and he's going to do that, capturing that footman, at which point player 2 is going to use his footman to move 1 space forward and capture player 1's footman. So now, let's see, back to player 1. Player 1's going to have a look here. Player 1, let's see, is going to move their Duke 1 space over there. Player 2 is going to move their footman up here, endangering the General, after seeing what player 1 was doing. But player 1 is going to capture their footman. Player 2 is going to draw a new piece and get the Ranger, which is actually a very useful piece, placing it here, and immediately, because of their slide, immediately endangering the General. That black arrow means they can move as far in that direction as they want. But then, rather than move the General out of the way, player 1 decides to move their footman forward and endanger the Duchess. So you can take my General, but you're going to lose your Duchess if you do. So now, here is how a game of the Duke goes. It goes back and forth. This may not have been the most strategic game. I was just trying to show you how the moves work. But you go back and forth until you capture your opponent's Duke. Now, the Duke is sort of like the king in chess in that if you capture it, the game is over. Now, you never actually capture the king in chess, but in the Duke you do. But you do warn the person that they are in danger on the turn when you have endangered their Duke. They choose whether or not to get their Duke out of the way, but of course they would want to do their best to do so, because if the Duke is captured, they lose. But then if you are able to capture the Duke, it is game over. So that's it. That's how you play a game of the Duke. So now let's head back. I'm going to tell you how it feels. I'm going to review it and rate it, and we're going to get a second opinion from Len. Okay, so that's how you play the Duke. Now, I forgot to mention in the earlier part of this video where I purchased this particular copy of the Duke. I purchased this one at a game shop called Fair Game, which is located on Main Street in Downers Grove, Illinois. If you happen to live in the area or be anywhere near the area, check them out. They're a very friendly little local game shop with a great selection for their size. They also have area to play games, quite a few demo games to try out, and they have snacks and beverages there for sale as well for while you are gaming. Now, the Duke. The Duke is a really cool abstract strategy game. The pieces move like you would expect them to in an abstract strategy game, something akin to say chess. But then that extra added dynamic element of flipping the pieces. And now when your opponent does it, maybe you didn't remember what was on the other side, and you're like, oh, I forgot he could do that. And when you flip yours, you spring it on your opponent. Ha! Now I'm endangering your Duke, and you say guard. Guard is what you say when you endanger the Duke, similar to check in chess. So that element adds this whole extra level to the Duke above and beyond a lot of the classic abstract strategy games. This really does feel like a worthy successor to a lot of the abstract strategy games. I like this game a lot. It is tons of fun. It is very interesting. It makes you think on whole new levels, having to always consider what your pieces are going to do when you flip them over, and also what your opponent's pieces might be able to do when they flip over. It adds just a lot of extra dynamic elements to the game. In addition, the bit of randomness added in with drawing the random tiles from the bag when you're drawing a new piece, it's just enough randomness to add a little bit of tension and worry, ooh, what are they going to get? Oh, I hope it's not something too bad. And then they draw out and it's just another footman and you're like, oh, phew. Or they draw out and they get the dragoon, and you're like, oh, uh-oh. And that's great. And it really feels like a lot of fun. I really enjoy this game. I've played it many, many times. I'm going to play it many times in the future, which is why I give the Duke 8 out of 10 stars. I will play this game anytime someone asks, every time that I am looking to play a two-player game, because it's just Lynn and I playing, or another friend of mine and I playing, and we just want to play a two-player game. This is always on my short list of possible games to play. In addition to how awesome this game is on its own, they have made a bunch of expansions. They have these little spinner rack baggy expansions. These two here, which I have not yet opened, this one is the Three Musketeers, and this one is the Arthurian Legends expansion. And in these cases, they allow you to swap out pieces from the game for these, which allow you to add the theme of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table versus Morgana and Mordred, or the Three Musketeers versus their various enemies from the book by Alexandre Dumas. And you can play out that theme, adding a really cool theme to the Duke. Now, while these two have not been opened, the one we have opened, and it was the first one we opened and then we got stuck on it, was the Robin Hood one. Lynn is a big fan of the whole Robin Hood theme, and once she played it, she loved it, and we've played that one a lot. And in that one side gets to be Robin Hood and his merry men and Maid Marian, while the other side is the Sheriff of Nottingham, Guy of Gisborne, and Prince John. And it is really cool. It's not just replacing, and that's another interesting thing, it's not just replacing a few of the pieces with those specific pieces. There's also extra rules too. The thing about the bad guy player in Robin Hood is they have 3 dukes. All 3 of those pieces, when they're on the board, they get to start with Guy of Gisborne on the board, but as they draw the other pieces, they count as the Duke as well. So there actually winds up being multiple pieces that the good guy player needs to take out to win. Adds a lot of variety to the game, adds different ways you can play it, and those are great, and maybe I will do reviews of the specific expansions later. But for the Duke, for now, 8 out of 10 stars. I really like this game. Really cool game. If you like two-player abstract strategy games, I do recommend this game to you. But let's get a second opinion. Lynn, out of 10 stars, how many stars would you give to the Duke?
8.
So Lynn also gave it 8 stars. I'm not that surprised because she asks to play this game a lot. Now, that being said, this is a 2 thumbs way up review. So if you like abstract strategy games but are looking for something a little bit different with an extra twist, the Duke is the game for you. This is a really interesting game. It's really cool. It keeps all of the things that are great about old school abstract strategy games, but adds in this new dynamic element that just makes it fresh. And there you have it. So do you have any comments or questions about either the game The Duke or about this video? Please comment down below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see me do more like it, please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, game on.